Well, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Transform Tuesday. Transform Tuesday today started with a bit of a hiccup. Our GoToWebinar links had expired. They were not updated. So last minute email has been sent out to everyone here, well, including someone wonderful, and we've seen that people are joining us today. So hopefully we'll get a nice crowd. So in the previous Transform Tuesdays, we have talked about using the on-submit events with Alpha Transform. We went through reports, we went through sending SMS messages, and there's another one that's on the way, but I'm not going to cover it till it's actually in the product, but it will be the ability to let you save an individual record in the format, actually in several different formats, to a particular place on the internet using what's called a connection string or a connected app. So that's cool, and that will be coming up. But for the next several sessions, I want to take on building something a little bit more sophisticated than what we have done in the past. In the past, some of you may have remembered a sample application called Boilerminder. It was a type of inspection application that you could go out into the field, and it would let you make all kinds of intelligence decisions when you're going to fix a piece of equipment. For example, it could help you find the type of equipment you're looking for. It could help you find service manuals and stuff related to that. And we had put those together as sort of bits and pieces, but never really into a coherent app, except as part of maybe a PowerPoint or something like that. So today we're going to actually, we're going to go ahead and dive into part of a three-part series in which we build something a little bit more sophisticated. Now today we're not going to get terribly far. I just want to show you what I think the application should do. And we're going to start actually building out the form that's going to work behind it. And we're going to talk a little bit about the databases that we're going to need to set up. So just a reminder, I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined by Sarah Mitchell, our Director of Customer Success. So let's get going. And of course, at any point, if you've got a question, go ahead and type those questions into the GoToWebinar control panel. Or if you prefer, you can also send an email to to tfservice. That's TF service, like transform service, at alphasoftware.com. All right, on to the first slide. So we're going to imagine that the user of our application is an HVAC company, and they have technicians. This company has got technicians who are out in the field servicing lots of different types of equipment. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, so let me share my screen. All right. Is that working now? If someone in the audience could let me know, can you see my screen? Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, so you'll imagine there's someone out in the field, and they need to repair a piece of equipment. They've probably been assigned a ticket in Transform, which is how they knew to go out to a particular job site. But once they're there, they're not sure what they're going to find. So hopefully a product like Alpha Transform can make their job easier. And let me show you how I was thinking this could work. Moving on to the next slide, I have built here a form. This is all one form. I've split it into the top, the middle, and the bottom, so it'll all fit on a screen. So just imagine it's sort of snaking here from column to column. On the top of the form, we have information for service date. That's when the technician is supposed to be on the job site. We have the client's name, we have their address, city, state, and zip code, or postal code, if you will, along with what the customer reported as being wrong. So in this case, the air conditioner is not blowing cold air. So this stuff is all pre-filled out before it is assigned to the technician or before it's put into a queue that the technician can pull this ticket from. And we went over queues a couple weeks ago if you're interested in that video. Over here, once the technician gets to the job site, it's at that point that they go and start making various tests, maybe using checklists and stuff. I haven't built them in, but we can, and we might in some of the future episodes show how to add checklists here to help someone who's not particularly familiar with a particular operation to make repairs and to do diagnostics. Now we're going to imagine that because we are an organized company, we actually put barcodes onto a lot of the equipment. Sometimes the barcodes are actually put on by the manufacturer, but we also have the ability, like I'd shown you before, to generate barcodes in Transform. And if you print out those barcodes, you can put them onto stickers and stick them onto things to quickly identify a particular piece of equipment. Once that code is scanned, it's going to do two things. What's going to scan in is a serial number. And from that serial number, it's going to know a couple things. It's going to know the type or the model ID, which is not shown here on the form. It's going to know some service history. What did we do to it last time? It's going to know the date that it was placed into service. And really, that's about all. But because it has the mobile ID number, it's going to be able to look up into a different database and pull out this other information, such as the name, the brand, the type. And because this is a specific type, there might be specific fields that go along with that type, like the expansion device and a few other things that you're going to see in a minute. Likewise, because we know that this brand is a particular, or we know what this particular model is, we may already have the specifications for the installation instructions or just the product specifications already in a PDF that you'll be able to launch right from the phone. So you've got all of this power right here available to the technician. Way better than a paper form, huh? All right, cool. So let's take a look at a little block diagram here on the next page. Oops. Well, here's an example and this is actually a real thing. This is stuck onto a compressor coil. I took this picture here, and we're going to be using this a little bit later on as part of our example. All right. So this is how the app is supposed to work. This is what it should do. Whoops. Okay, so when the technician gets to that part on that form where they scan in the serial number, the first thing that Transform is going to do is it's going to look at an internal database called a SQLite database, and it's going to look up that serial number. When it finds the serial number, or if it finds the serial number, it's going to fill in the model ID, the date in service, and the service history. Now, the model ID is not of any particular use to the inspector, so this is actually hidden from him or her. But it is used, this model ID, to make a second lookup. And this second lookup goes against the equipment database down here, sorry, the models database down here. And with that model ID, it's able to pull out other bits of information, such as the name, the brand, the type. There might be some other things that are specific to that particular type thing, like the pressure that's required, the inlet valve sizes, and a few other fields, which I'm going to show you later. You may also have a photo of the model to make sure that you've scanned the right thing, you're looking at the right thing. And it may have links to some helpful documents, like the PDF documents I was telling you about in a moment. And then with all of that, it goes ahead and it fills in the form with the rest of that information, which has now given the technician a huge head start when it comes time to repairing something. So today we're not going to build this whole thing, but we're going to start by building the frame. And probably the best place to start is by building out the form. So I'm going to pop over here. And well, let me give you this quick preview. This is our database stuff just to get you excited. That's not for this week. That's going to be for next week. But this is basically the stuff I was telling you about in the last screen. All right, let's go ahead and do a live demo. And I'm going to show you how I put this form together so that next week it'll make sense when we wire it up. All right, let me escape out of PowerPoint here. And I'm going to open up my browser. Okay. My form is called Inspection Form A. So starting right from the top, I've just placed in a date, a service date field, which you see right here. There's the client name, there's the address, and there's the city, the state, and the zip, and the customer request. All of this is all going to be filled in using either the web form filler probably, or maybe in Management Console in Transform Central, because this is information that will probably be collected at headquarters before it's sent out to somebody in the field. Okay, the one thing I do want to show you, because people sometimes get confused at this and it's really easy to clear up, is how did I get my city, state, and zip to nicely fit onto these three things as opposed to just being one over the other? And I did that by applying a layout. So all I did simply was I went into my form commands here, I selected the three things that I wanted to have all on the same line, and I placed them into a section start. then I defined that section start as having 6 columns. Why 6? I'll tell you, it's sneaky. The reason is because I wanted to have 3 spaces for city, 1 space for state, and 2 spaces for zip. 3 plus 1 plus 2 is 6. So that was the grid that I set up. And then for each one of these fields, I just defined a layout where they had 3 for this one. And if I pop over here to state, you'll see that is 1, which is what the default is, so it doesn't have to say 1. And if I go over to zip, you'll see it's set up on 2. So that's just a quick reminder of how you do that in case you have forgotten how. All right, moving right along. The next thing we're going to have, or the next field that they're going to fill in is the serial number, which is going to be a scanner field. So that's how we've set that up here. And it's based on that scanner field that we're automatically going to fill in the name, the model, sorry, the name and the brand and the type. And because there are different types of things that you might be inspecting, for example, you might be inspecting a condenser, or you might be inspecting I don't know, a circuit box, or you might be inspecting a fan, or you might be inspecting the compressor, which is different than the condenser. They all have different fields. So what I've done here is I've only put in fields that are appropriate for the condenser in this case. So a condenser has something called an expansion device, and it has a capacity, and it has a suction line connection. Those all apply just to condensers. So what I did was I took those 3 fields and I wrapped them in an if statement so that these fields only appear if the type is condenser. The idea is I don't want to show a whole bunch of fields that don't apply to the thing that I'm looking at. And so this could actually be a very, very, very long list. But to the user, it could actually be really quite convenient because once they choose type, they'll just see what they want. Now, best of all, type is going to be chosen for us automatically when we do that scan. Okay, so let's go and take a look at a couple of the other things that I put into this form. The first is I have something called photo file name, and that is a file name of a photograph that's going to be pulled out of a database. Now that file name is, and it's set here. Now that file name isn't something that we want the user to see. Instead, we want to see the actual picture, not just the file not what the file name is of the picture. And the same is true with service history. We're going to put in service history. We're just going to take that, and that'll be loaded in from a database, and we're going to stick that into a field too. But we've wrapped this in an if, and we've set that if to false. And that's really how you hide these things. So they won't appear. They'll appear here in preview, but they don't appear in the phone when it's actually running. Okay, moving on. The next block we have is an HTML block. And that HTML block is where we're going to show the picture of the product that we're working on. And you do that using TPL syntax. So it's curly brace and then the phone name and that. I may need to add, and when we get to it, I may need to add a path to that. And I know I explained that about 6 weeks ago, but I will explain it next time just to make sure that Transform can find it on the on-device data. Next up, we have product specs, and these will be if and only if they exist will we have these buttons here appear. Right now, I have them, I guess, shut off by default, but we can have them turned on based on whether or not we have a product specification here. So what this is basically is should be a product button here. There's the button right here. And there's here's the product button right here for product specs. And when you click on that button, it's going to actually launch the file name. We're going to do a little TPL behind the scenes to make that work. The same is true with product install. And I think that is about it. So the point is that we've got a form which has all of the pieces for the data to go and has some hidden pieces for hidden data to go that we'll use to look up other data. And that is what's going to be used when we build out our form. So I hope you join us next week because we're going to start showing you how we're going to get that data loaded up into a system and put into a place that Transform can get to it. So do we have any questions today? Often we don't, but I'll give you a minute to type them in. Nope, that's it. Excellent. Well, I want to apologize for the mix-up on the GoToWebinar link. This link should now be good until November, the end of November. So we'll keep an eye on it to make sure it does not expire again. Thanks very much for showing up, Sarah. Thanks for being here. If anyone does have questions, go ahead and send them to tfservice@alphasoftware.com. Thanks again. Take care and stay well. Bye-bye.